I want to talk about the state of booktube and particularly if booktubers can be trusted for book recommendations and if booktubers know what quality books are or what good books are. I spend most of this video ranting about star ratings and how terrible of a metric they are. This is inspired by the video Johan at Library of a Viking put out on his channel on this very same topic, and by the video Ross from Hardy's Books put out on his channel. Johan focused on very many aspects in the book community, and Ross just talked about objective versus subjective art. I have both of those videos linked in the description of this video if you want to see those. For this video, I am honing in on star ratings and how reviewers rate books. What inspired Johan to make that video is an interview he had with fellow booktuber Philip Chase.
I have not been able to stop thinking about the place of booktube or other platforms since I had the incredible Philip Chase on my channel.
And in that interview, Philip Chase made the comment that rating books based solely off of enjoyment is not the best way to rate books, because there are books that might not be enjoyable but are challenging and somehow enrich your life. And Johan's really been reflecting on that and then decided to make this video about booktube. Honestly, I think it's an interesting point Philip Chase brings up, and Philip Chase in that clip also said,
I look into Goodreads sometimes just for my own amusement. I look at some of the great classics. They have low ratings in Goodreads. Yep. And a lot of the time, I suspect it's because people did not enjoy reading those books.
And I am going to start this video by investigating that claim before I get into does the ratings on Goodreads even matter. The first book I decided to look at as like a modern popular book is Fourth Wing. Johan even references this book in his video, calling it a modern book that's rated very high, but is not a good book. I think good is subjective, and I think calling this book a not good book or a bad book is doing a disservice to what the book is trying to accomplish. I'm going to get into that more in a second. Let's just talk about ratings right now. So Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros is rated 4.58 on Goodreads as the average rating. It also has 1.8 million ratings. And the first classic book I thought of was Pride and Prejudice, which is rated 4.29 with 4.3 million ratings. So Pride and Prejudice has more than double the number of ratings as Fourth Wing, and I don't think the rating is that significantly lower than Fourth Wing. So I would say these are decently comparable. Yes, Pride and Prejudice is a little bit lower than Fourth Wing in their average rating, but it also has significantly more ratings. So the other, I'm going to say, big popular book talk favorite that is generally dunked on as not being a good book despite being very popular is A Court of Thorns and Roses. And that one is sitting at a 4.19 rating on Goodreads with 2.8 million people rating this book. So this is actually rated lower than Pride and Prejudice, and it doesn't even have as many ratings as Pride and Prejudice. But I decided to ask in a couple of the Discords that I'm in what people think of whenever they think of classic books versus what they think of whenever they think of like TikTok darlings. And I'm going to go through the ratings of the classic books and then go through the ratings of some of the popular TikTok darlings. The highest rated classic I found, now I did not extensively search all the classics, but the highest rated classic I found of the ones mentioned in my Discord was 4.3, and that is for The Count of Monte Cristo. So I actually expected The Count of Monte Cristo to be one of the lower rated classics, and it's not. It's one of the higher rated classics. I also expected War and Peace might be a lower rated classic, but it's sitting pretty good at a 4.16 rating on Goodreads. A Christmas Carol enjoys a nice 4.08. Now, I did find some classics that were rated less than 4 stars. So we have Wuthering Heights at 3.89 and Of Mice and Men also at 3.89. I also decided most of the popular books I'm looking at, I am talking about the fantasy community. So what is a fantasy classic? Oh, it's The Lord of the Rings. So The Fellowship of the Ring is at 4.3. 1.39, which is one of the highest rated classics on my list. If we're looking at all of the classics, Lord of the Rings has a higher rating than The Count of Monte Cristo. Let's see how that compares to modern books. Another book that came up whenever I asked about modern popular TikTok books, a lot of these do seem to be in the romance genre, so I will go ahead and talk about another romance. So we have Icebreaker, which was super popular, but it's actually sitting at less than 4 stars at a 3.85 star average rating on Goodreads. Another popular, and if we're talking more fantasy, let's talk Legends and Lattes. So that one's sitting at a 4.12. At this point, I don't see that much of a discrepancy between the classics and the modern books. But as I dig a little bit further, we have Red Rising sitting at a 4.27 average rating. Now, I will say, Red Rising has less than 500,000 people rating it on Goodreads. I do think the number of people rating it on Goodreads does play a factor into the average rating. We also have The Will of the Many, which only has 45,000 ratings, but it is sitting at a 4.63. That is definitely the highest rated book that I've brought up yet. But even higher rated is The Way of Kings, sitting at a 4.66 average rating. And this book has 500,000 ratings on Goodreads. Honestly, I did find all of this a little surprising because I did expect the classics to be rated even lower than they actually are on Goodreads. And I did expect some of the popular romance books to be rated even higher. And what I actually found was the fantasy books, the popular fantasy books, are rated higher than the popular romance books. And that really surprised me, but I do wonder if the subgenres really help. And Fourth Wing got a lot of attention and probably had a lot of people reading it, and they're coming at it from very different viewpoints. The same with classics. They usually have a large number of readings on Goodreads, and so they have a lot of people from a lot of different perspectives coming to this work, whereas your fantasy books might be the only people reading them are people who already enjoy that genre. So I think some of the discrepancy of ratings could just boil down to, are the people reading the books people who already enjoy this genre? On top of that, I think what a classic book is doing and what a book like Legends and Lattes and Fourth Wing are doing are very different things. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to rate Legends and Lattes and Fourth Wing on the same criteria that you would rate maybe Pride and Prejudice and Of Mice and Men. I would expect that if you are reading a book that is talking about the meaning of life and talking, deeply and has deep resonating themes, you would rate that differently. Yes, it might not be as enjoyable to read. It might be a challenging read, but is Legends and Lattes trying to discuss the meaning of life, trying to have some deep philosophical themes in it, or is it trying to be a cozy, entertaining book? And there's nothing wrong with a book just being cozy and entertaining. And there's nothing wrong with a book trying to be philosophical and really dive deep into the deep questions of life. And I think rating these books, so if we're saying Legends and Lattes does not dive into these deep questions, so therefore I can't rate it high, I can only give it a 3-star. But Legends and Lattes was never trying to do that. So I think it would be fair to also evaluate, what is this book trying to do? And did it accomplish what it is trying to do? And I don't think it's bad to rate books based off of enjoyment. Some readers are reading for enjoyment, and they're not trying to read so that way they can ponder the mysteries of life. I think there is value in reading deep, philosophical, enriching books, but I also think there's value in reading entertaining books. And it does kind of seem like the audiences for these books are different, but I don't think they have to be. I think we can just, enjoy fun books and enjoy deep discussions. And I also understand people, maybe they deal with those questions in life outside of books, and whenever they sit down to read, they're looking for entertainment, they're looking for escape, they're looking for something different than what they're already dealing with in their life. And a lot of people, they might not be already dealing with the mysteries of life, but they're just trying to get by in life, and they're working 2 jobs, or their world is really stressful, and they're just wanting something that's fun and entertaining and relaxing, because they don't also want their entertainment time to be that reflective and possibly stressful and challenging whenever they're already being challenged in other areas of life. So the reason for reading could be different for different people. I'm also coming from the perspective of someone who works in a public library, and we definitely encourage literacy. And one of the best ways to increase literacy is by reading fun books. Just find something that's entertaining, that you enjoy, and read it. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, there's a lot of benefits that come from reading things that you enjoy. That's not to say that we should never challenge ourselves or never push ourselves outside of our comfort zone, but I think there's a balance to be had in all of these situations. On top of that, I think ratings are way more subjective than anyone likes to admit. And it is part of the reason that I don't rate the books that I read, because I find ratings utterly meaningless. So the fact that classics are generally rated lower on Goodreads means absolutely nothing to me. The fact that The Way of Kings was the highest rating book that I looked up whenever I was looking up these books on Goodreads also means absolutely nothing to me, because people rate subjectively, and their rating system, their scale in which they rate things, is subjective. There are people who reserve a 5-star for the best of the best books, the books that they have no critiques of, that really touch them in some special way, and they rate very few 5 stars. There's other people that really enjoy a book but can point out some flaws, like, hey, I really enjoyed this book, it has problems here, here, and here, but it was awesome, 5 stars. Both of these people exist on Goodreads, and I think a lot of this comes down to people see ratings differently. Some people think a 3-star rating is a really bad rating, and some people think it's an average to good rating. And I think this is aggravated by the way ratings are used in life. And I think the way ratings are used in life also contributes to classics possibly having a lower rating than an enjoyable fantasy or an enjoyable romance. So, in academia, which are probably the people more likely to read classics, so the primary audience of the classics that are rating the books on Goodreads, are probably more critical and more ready to take off stars for flaws in the book. Like, I remember being in college and having professors trying to tell us that a 80% is a good grade, and getting B's are good grades, which probably fell on deaf ears, because at my college, our financial aid and scholarships were based on our grades. So it's kind of hard to incentivize students to learn and grow, and it's okay to make mistakes, and getting an 80 is good and you can grow from here, when your financial aid is based off of perfection. That's a whole other issue. But I also feel like that, going through school and really being ingrained, an 80% is fine. Yes, there's room to grow, but it's not a bad score. Once you get out into corporate America, it's entirely different. If corporate America, they have a rating system that's like 5, you have a scale of 1 star to 10 stars. Anything less than a 10 star is not a good rating. An 8 out of 10 is a horrible garbage rating. It is kind of jarring to go from college, where you are being encouraged to, continually learn and grow and not take an 80% as a hugely negative thing, and you get out into corporate America and 80% is terrible. And honestly, I think corporate America is wrong, because if your scale is 1 to 10, then each point on that scale should have a different meaning, and you should not have 8 or 9 points on that scale that are garbage and only 1 good one. That's a ridiculous rating. I graduated college and got out into corporate America and was just seeing how like utterly ridiculous rating systems are in the first place. I stopped reading books because I was just like, ratings are just that, they're meaningless. I have literally even seen someone talk about rating books on Goodreads and say that they will rate books 5 stars even if they feel like it's a 4-star because they don't want to hurt the average rating of the book. Whenever you have stuff like this is just further contributing to the rating scale being meaningless. Everyone has their own system. Their system is subjective, and they are rating according to their subjective system. And then we're compiling all of that data into an average rating that doesn't actually mean anything because we are comparing very different things and saying they're comparable when they're not. I mean, at the same time, I think because ratings are so subjective, rate how you like. Rate how you like. You don't have to get all critical about things. If you enjoyed a book and you want to rate it 5 stars, go for it. If you didn't enjoy a book and you want to rate it 1 star, go for it. And it's not that deep. It's really not that deep. So in conclusion, should you take booktubers' ratings seriously? No, you shouldn't. Or actually you should if you are familiar with those booktubers and how they use the rating scale, because I do think a rating can be meaningful if you are already familiar with that particular rating scale and how it is being used. Otherwise, just in general, if you've never seen a booktuber before and they give a book 5 stars, that does not mean it's the greatest thing ever. It's also why I'm much more interested in reviews and reasons why people liked or disliked a book, because, you know, someone's reason for liking a book might be a reason that I dislike the book and vice versa. That gives me a lot better gauge on what I will think of the book versus what some YouTuber said. I think YouTube really thrives at making people aware of books that are available to read, and it is up to the viewer to decide whether or not that book sounds interesting to them, and they don't have to read it just because a booktuber liked it. Could booktubers learn how to critically analyze books and be more critical of books, and might that help them have better reviews and be better able to express themselves on what they liked or didn't like of the book? Yes, maybe, but I don't think that's a requirement for all booktubers. I think, honestly, a lot of booktube is about community, and I think there's nothing wrong with just joining the community with where you are and going from there. If you want to improve and be more analytical with your reading, more power to you. And if you don't and you just want to read for enjoyment and then talk about the books that you enjoyed, more power to you. For many of us, reading is a hobby and booktube is a hobby, and I don't think we should lose sight of that. I would love to hear your opinions on anything I discussed in this video. In the comments, I would love to continue this conversation. So if any of this resonated with you, or if you disagree with any of this, let me know. And I hope to see you in another video. Happy reading!